Thanks for staying with us. In studio is Charles Owino, Professor Peter Kagwanja, Dr. Martin Olo, and Sheila Olang. Sheila, coming to you. Despite the adversities, there seems to be determination on the part of Kenya's young. Are we living the moment of the pushback from young Kenyans, and besides the call for good governance and end to corruption, deep-seated lacking accountability and transparency, the push out on the part of the political class, and what's the effect of sweeping them out of the scene?
I think first I would maybe like to give a bit of context. Maybe I'll use history as Prof has done before. There was a time when the British were, colonized this country and they lived here. And there are people who had the audacity, Mau Mau and the rest of them, to say, this is not what we want. And it is true that in the beginning they looked like they were mad men and women claiming that there would be an end to this. There's a play that is running now, the Mau Mau, the Dedan Kimathi's trial, and I went to watch it. And during that time, it looked like it was impossible, that they were thinking that the British could stop ruling this country. And that came, and we got independence. Then there are people who came up and said, hey, but we only have a single party, multi-party system. Now we want to have several parties. We had 24 years of the same president. Multi-party, multi-party. And they looked like they were out of their minds. And I'm sure there were people sitting there asking, but what are these people talking about? We have a single party system. We got a multi-party system. That came through. Then we thought, okay, we need a new constitution. We went through, we got a new constitution. What we're looking at today is a lot of people are very disillusioned. They're thinking, what are these young people doing? What are they talking about? They're not understanding something very fundamentally simple. We are issue-based. I think we were discussing this before. And they're just not believing it. We are issue-based. It doesn't matter who you are sitting at what position. We want systemic change. I want a system that works for all of us. If Ayub comes in, it doesn't matter that you're Ayub. It doesn't matter that you're from whatever tribe, whatever political affiliation. The system will work in your favor. That is what, as young people, we are asking for. And there's a tone deafness that is going on because, unfortunately, they're used to the old kind of politics that is going through. And that's why right from the beginning, I was in the demonstrations last year. And I can tell you that if the demonstrations last year were party-based, I would have never gone out and risked my life. The only reason I was there is because for the first time, I could identify with it. Now, the very foundation that is used to attack us young people and this movement is the foundation that builds us and makes us stronger. The fact that leaderless, partyless, tribeless, I know that it sounds very much like there's a euphoria thing going on, but they're not believing. They're not believing that 70% of this population, which is actually young people, they're coming up and they're saying, we want a system that works for all of us. Why the political class decides to be threatened by this is a mystery to me. Because what we are fighting for will also benefit you. When you go out and you peacefully demonstrate and you follow the rules and you adhere to the Constitution, it is also in your own good that we are saying we want an end to police brutality. It is good for you. When we are saying we would like economic changes that really work on increasing our purchasing power, it is good for you. Because when you have an economy that works, the economy will not discriminate and think, well, let me work better for this one or that one because of their tribe or their political affiliation or because of their leader. We are issue-based. And that is why they are not believing that until they attack the issues themselves, we are going through an economic revolution and they are responding politically. You do not have an economic crisis, an economic problem, and then you respond with politics. So when you come, and it feels good politically when you go somewhere and you're donating a bunch of money, right? It feels good for you. Politically, you think, hey, I'm gaining points. But economically speaking, it makes no sense at all. And so what we are saying is we want a system that works for us because as young people, we have decided, A, we have the numbers, and B, we have to make sure that we have a Kenya in the next 20, 30 years, when they will be gone, that is a Kenya that can work for all of us and the future generations to come. So what is going on now is there's just tone deafness on focusing on the issues. And how I wish that this government would just decide, let us roll up our sleeves and focus on the issues, because we want a system that works for everybody.
Okay. Dr. Olo, coming to you. Looking at what the president had stated in the aftermath of last year, June 25th, appreciating that there were deep-seated problems that Sheila and I and our age mates have.
And by the way, I'm very happy to have Sheila here.
Yeah.
We must also have young people.
Yeah, including sending his cabinet home, making all those pledges that we had seen, which was on its by itself proper diagnosis of the problem. But why do you think he has gotten the prescription very wrong in failing, grossly so, the abject failure in meeting major of those pledges?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, Ayub, and because Charles is here and he speaks for government, we would like to give you a message. When you're dealing with a multi-generational issue, there are things you need to talk about or you need to address. One, address stereotyping. When I listen to most of your leaders, most of the people in the government, they are stereotyping young people instead of appreciating that these young people are coming from a place. Two, when you are dealing with a generational issue, foster open and transparent communication. Listen, foster collaboration, because what the young people are saying is that they are part of the country. So why don't you want to listen and foster that? But more importantly, you need flexibility and support, because what you are saying is that you have to be flexible. If you think they are wrong, be flexible enough to understand why they may be wrong and why you may be right. So you must listen to them, but you also need to recognize their contributions and provide opportunities. Because if you don't provide them opportunities and you're not recognizing their contribution, then you are not going to agree. But more importantly, build inclusive communities, so that every one of us feels they have something to bring on this table. But every time you listen to government, every time you listen to pronouncements, they are divisive as they are forceful as they are ordering as they are sounding like they know and others don't know. And that's not the point. The young people in this country today, and I spend a lot of time with the young people because of the teaching that I do, have a different message for us. One, they are questioning us to live our values. Two, they are questioning us to be transparent or to be honest. If we tell them that drinking is bad, they expect us not to be drinking. If we are telling them that stealing is bad, they expect us not to be stealing. But so they are wondering, why are these elders telling us things that we should not do when they're busy doing them? So those things are so true today, and what we can only do is to respond with an understanding that we are actually providing or not giving good examples to the young people, and that's why they're calling us to question. If you promise them that you'll do something by X, be sure that they'll ask you after that time whether you did it or not. So we're no longer living in the world where our young people just hanged around or just kowtowed along. No, they are challenging. And most important thing that we, my friend Peter here was saying, that we are living through a revolution, but we are sleeping through it. You see, there were times, and indeed there are people in Parliament today who have not read the Finance Bill 2025. I can tell you the young people have read it, they have analyzed it, and they have identified issues. There are people today who cannot communicate, even in the simple language. The young people have been able to, summarize issues concisely, and they are able to communicate with themselves. And they have spaces. They don't have to go to rallies. They are able to talk among themselves. Now, with that kind of generation, with that kind of knowledge and information, you can only respond with knowledge and information as well. But you can't come with brute force. You can't come and threaten them with the police and other violence means. In other words, it is not always successful to try and approach a change or a crisis in generations through brutal force. It does not work.
And given that they are tech-savvy, urban, mobile, connected, digital, and even translated the Finance Bill last year into all the languages.
All the languages.
For proper understanding. Yes, Charles, please.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much. The first thing that we need not to forget is that every time, every generation, there'll be young people. when we got the emergency in 1952, they were young people. Dedan Kimathi was not old.
29, yes.
Yeah, 29. They were young people. And they were agitating, and young people will always agitate. When we had the multi-party democracy fight, even the coup, 1982, the people who did them, they were young people. The multi-party democracy, the guys who are now old, the Muites, the Orengos, the Railas.
Young Turks then.
They were young. So even now we must appreciate that every generation that we are going to be, and I agree with you, Dr. Low, on issues of values. But equally, we don't need to be over brutal on governance and government. We are lucky as a country that we have a very vibrant constitution where we have elections every 5 years. And one thing that we must do is inculcate values on our children. And these values start from your own family before we go to the street. And that is why you find people are concerned about children going to school. What we must also not get lost of is our history. That some of these problems we are facing today with the young people are problems we have always faced. Issues of unemployment is our major, major issues. Issues of economy. And we don't need to, I'm not saying it is wrong to point on what you think the president has done, which is wrong. Like, for example, saying that state officers will not give money, and then suddenly he gives 20 million to a church. I'm not saying that we should not point out at that. When something is wrong, point out at it. But we must also...
Is it wrong?
Yeah, it's wrong to say something and do the opposite. It's wrong, I have to admit. But what I'm saying equally is that let us not run away from the good things. You know, we cannot just say, we have to balance, Sheila.
Yeah.
We have to admit that in 2022, Kenya Airways had a loss of 22.6 billion. In 2024, 2025, at least we have a profit of 5.4 billion. We have to admit that our trading aggregate rate for KPLC was 1 shilling in 2022. Now it is 8.6 shillings. We have to admit, under the tea sector, that a kilo of tea was 50, now it has gone to 70. We have to admit that coffee was 50 shillings, it is now at 145. So, sugarcane industry, what has happened? So what we are saying, yes, we have challenges, and we must also admit, and Mwalimu, you took it wrongly that I said we kill people every elections. It is factual that after every elections, we find people conflicting, people fighting, and we lose lives, which is not right. And that is why even today, we have 5 families who notified the police on 13th June that they'll have a peaceful procession today. 5 families. The families of the 4 ladies who lost their children and the gentleman who lost their brother. And they notified police on 13th of June, according to regulations. They even said they'll start it at 10. They even gave the routes which they will use. So what we expect is, in such cases, what we should see is everybody assembling peacefully, having a procession peacefully, and at the end of the day, finalizing. It is not something you find people mobilizing, people as far as Murang'a, as far as Nyeri, as far as Kisumu, to come and overtake Nairobi. Because you know, what we are saying is the economy of the country must run. On one hand, you cannot be saying you don't have jobs, the economy is not doing well. On the other hand, you want a holiday on a working day in the name of peaceful demonstration. If it is peaceful demonstration, it must be peaceful. So let us agree that the morals are not just what the president is saying. The morals start with us.
And what the politicians always do also, considering that their language is also wanting. Prof, is it proving to be problematic that we are having a catalogue of KANU products who are unable to comprehend with the extent of the freedoms this Katiba comes with, and therefore its implementation very difficult, and the freedoms that these educated young Kenyans are exercising in bringing to the limelight issues that need to be addressed in our governance architecture?
Let me start by giving a very positive note, and let it not be forgotten. as of 2022, when Ruto came to power, about 80% of our population are people below the year 35 years. Therefore, any attempt using whatever you have, all the arsenals we have to defend ourselves against our neighbors and our enemies, you use them against us. It's a battle of eggs against stones, because you can never win. You can kill as many young people as you can, but you're not finished. Because even the genocidals in Rwanda were not able to finish a small group called Tutsi. So when you are fighting a futile war, just understand it's a futile war. That's why the British were unable to defeat the Mau Mau, who had nothing. Because these are young people. I think my uncle, Uhura, the one after the stadium, had just married. He was, I think, 25 years, General Uhura. General Kago was in his 20s. Kimathi was in his 20s. None of them. So these were young people who said enough is enough, because they have seen their fathers and their grandfathers working. And the same thing is happening today. So when we say there are some people sleeping through the revolution, we literally mean that. No, wisdom is knowing battles you can win, and therefore stopping going to those battles because you're going to lose. This one, my generation, the Ruto generation, and others are losing. This one we are losing. But what is happening, and why are we blind to the reality? Why are we sleeping through this revolution? In June 25, when the events took place, there were two visions of Kenya that were pursued, or that were, put on the table. Vision number one is to listen to the young people and change. And I think that's what the president did. He came, the journalists are talking about him cutting a lonely face, meaning he was thinking himself and Kenya.
And even joined them on X Spaces.
Yes, the two. Yeah, he was thinking about himself and Kenya. And when he thought soberly about that, he gave promises that took young people back to their homes, because they were feasible and they were good to implement. And therefore, you need time to implement, and that's what happened. The second vision is a counter-revolution. And the counter-revolution took place after the second vision. They decided they are not going to implement the second vision. And what does the counter-revolution look like? First, dismantle anything sober or critical within the ruling formation. That was the basis of impeachment of, Rigathi Gachagua. There was nothing else. Any voice that would issue a critical message, just get rid of it. And not just Gachagua. People talk about Gachagua. Gachagua went with a whole system of government that was literally more independent-minded. So you are left with people who are going to be just look at the kind of quality of leadership that we have since that time. And the kind of drama they are giving, tractors here, posho mills there, all these things. Look at that. The second, and this is the most unfortunate, is that the only hope the people had, Raila Odinga and the opposition, the official opposition, decided to go to bed with a government that had decided that it's not going to implement the vision of a stable future, the vision that the young people had. And I have heard some people priding themselves that we have saved this government from the Gen Zs. I mean, it's so absurd. You find it everywhere in tweets, you find it everywhere. It's not about saving the government. When Raila Odinga made the argument that we want to clean the government from inside, we gave him a benefit, because if he goes to the government to change it from within, then that makes sense. He can change it. But is that not really what happened? So the counter-revolution, beyond the impeachment and the co-optation of the official opposition, then went to the military. Rhetoric of threat from all the forces that are supposed to be protecting us. And more rhetoric from the government, threatening people. People say one term. That's what they are saying. The young people are saying one term, but they are saying that it's not one term. It is forever. Then you move from there. You have this chest thumping, and a week ago we saw the worst. Goons in the heart of our city, protected by the police. Goons. So, in other words, what are we doing, Ayub? We are basically having order in disorder. We are creating order out of, disorder. Order out of disorder. Okay. And that theory of normalizing disorder is what you hear from my brother Charles, that after all we have been killing from every election we kill. So what is new about these 60 people dying in the street? You are normalizing. You didn't say so, but haven't we killed?
No.
We've killed the massacre.
You see, you have taught us you cannot talk like that. Don't give that impression. I've not said that.
You said we have been killing every election.
The point is that there's no justification for a death of a single Kenyan.
That's the point.
Whether it was yesterday or in the Kenyan.
Whether it is yesterday, today, or tomorrow, no Kenya should die. And therefore, we cannot use historical evidence of death to justify deaths today. This is the simple argument we are making. Or to justify non-action today about what is happening.
On the part of the state, that is.
Yes.
And Sheila, then, how will the deep-seated apprehension and public angst be addressed, given that you have clearly seen the political establishment is dead against any of what the young people voiced last year, and it's back to default settings on its part?
I think let me start by clarifying something that I think Charles brought up here. When you love somebody or when you love something, it is also your duty to be honest. When you love somebody or something, it is your duty to be honest. As young people, we love this country. And I think that's the first notion that needs to be put on the table. We are coming from a place of responsible love. We are coming from a place of accountability. And we are coming from a place of sitting as the major stakeholders of this country. When 70% of a population sits down in any democracy and tells you this is the way we want to go forward, we are coming from a place of love. And that's why I said it before, we are issue-based. It doesn't matter who sits there. Whether Raila goes into government today and then, President Ruto stays on until 32, whatever they want. For me, that is, personally, I find that to be completely irrelevant. I will speak out on systemic issues. I will be issue-based, and I don't care who sits in that seat. And we need to really start dividing that conversation from political opportunists. Because sometimes when we call out these issues, they're very quick. Of course, there will always be opportunists everywhere. Anytime there's a road accident, there's always a lawyer somewhere running to go and try to get the numbers of the victims, because they're seeing an opportunity. They're called ambulance lawyers who go and try to get the numbers of the victims so they can run quickly and represent you in court. That happens. Anytime there's a funeral, there's a vendor of a tent somewhere, a caterer who's waiting to see, am I going to get the job for that funeral? So that happens. But those two things must be separated. Do not confuse us sticking to the issues with us saying that we are politically opposing one or the other. I think if there's one thing we have learned 1 year later, is that there's the political class, and then there's us. And when I say political class, it doesn't matter what you're calling yourself. There's just those two junctures put together. So that's the first thing that we need to clarify. So, because sometimes they try to dilute this messaging, and try to hijack the whole, because we said we are leaderless and we are partyless, now it's just an opportunity for everyone to jump in. It doesn't matter who sits there. What we want is that we want these issues addressed. That is very, very clear. The second thing, I said this before and I will say it again. You are having solutions that are not even starting to understand the problem itself. The level of public distrust in this country is ridiculously low. And the kinds of things we're seeing now are not helpful. When something is good, by the way, I will always say it's good. I'm on the record here saying that this time when a police officer shot Boniface, by the next day, we had names, we had ID numbers, and we had a very good statement from the police officer. And for that, I say congratulations. That is all we've been asking for. When you go into a movement, I always say you have to understand why you're there. If you don't, someone else will give you a reason for being there. Personally, as a young person, when I walk into that demonstration, I know why I'm walking there. I'm walking there because I would like to see change. Now, if that change means that we still have President Ruto for the next 100 years, so be it. Because my agenda was that I needed that change. But if you walk in because there's a part of you that's saying, no, but now I want Prof to be the president, or now I want, Charles to be the next president, you will get disappointed if the changes you're asking for then therefore get done. You see? So at the end of the day, we've made progress, and if there's any young person listening to me, it's working. It's working because last year, the 60 people who were killed, not one police officer, we never got a name, we never got an ID number, and we didn't see anybody in court. Today, when I was looking at the news yesterday, I'm seeing police officers arraigned to answer questions. Now, is it 100%? No. But it is there. And I can tell you that if it wasn't for the movement we had last year, we would have never seen this progress. So there is progress, and it is working. And I would like to encourage the state that when you're trying to build trust with a nation, please work on PR and communication.
Okay.
It is this simple things that we are seeing on TV. It is this chest thumping that you're talking about that does not help with dialogue at all.
Okay, and Dr. Olo, coming to you, how has the coming on board of, or the onboarding of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the ODM party at a time when the head of state struggled for legitimacy in the aftermath of June 25th really helped perpetuate the continuity in the killings of Kenyans? IMLU, the Independent Medical Legal Unit, says 39 cases were recorded. It released its statements on Monday, and it seems it's a deja vu altogether.
I'm glad you asked that question, and here I want to behave like Charles. I've never understood what the what the rationale or what explains Baba's dalliance with the Ruto government. I've never understood whether it was meant to come and help build governance, build up transparency, because when I listen to some very good friends of mine, some of them are lawyers who are politicians, they speak things that are worse than what I ever heard from people like Kariuki Chotara and Mulu. In fact, they made more sense. I listen to them and I see them arguing, and I'm like, wait a minute, who told you that that was the issue? So basically what I would like to say, Ayub, is that we are in a place where, and I want to message both to government and to the young people, we need to build strong communitarian values. And when we talk about communitarian values, it's not about individuals. It's not about Baba, it's not about Ruto. We are saying that what are Kenyans asking for? Kenyans are calling for a greater sense of community, that we want to feel we all belong to this country. The young, the old, and so on. And let's admit, some of us have been around for too long. I mean, when I myself, we are actually out of debt in terms of we've done the best part of our lives, but the young people still have so much in front of them. They are asking for, how do we manage what is the common good? The common good is that works for all of us. I mean, when we talk about empowerment, if an economy is working, we do not need the so-called empowerment program. Let's just make economy work for young, for women, and for everybody. And then we are also talking about balancing individual rights and social responsibilities, balancing liberty and social order. And this is a message both to government and the young people, that at the end of the day, yes, we want to exercise our liberty, but we also want to ensure that there's social order. And so, yes, we might not agree on everything else, but one thing we must be careful about is that as I exercise my rights, I must also ensure that we still have a social order that we can all live by. We recognize small advancements, yes, and still call for more accountability. When the government is doing well, we say it's doing okay. There are good things that are happening. Nobody's saying nothing good is happening. We are, as a country, by the way, as a people, and I like the example that he was giving earlier, sometimes it's not about the leader that makes us who we are. As Kenyans, we are very resilient people. We will wake up in the morning with industry. We will work to make sure that we bring food back home. We are not waiting for anybody to give us. So a leader only helps us to facilitate and to animate us and so on. So we need a leader, yes, but so that we can run our lives without any interference. But lastly, we need, and this is both again to government and the young people, civic engagement. What we are hearing is people want to speak up. So let them speak up. People want to demonstrate. That's why we have put it in the Constitution. Let them now, when they are doing so, protect them and provide them security. I do not allow goons to then go and harass them. and do not even appear to be facilitating the goons, as we've seen in some instances. Because all they're saying is they want to engage with you. Back to your houses, when our children have issues with us, we don't invite goons on them. We allow them to speak, and until we agree, or even if we don't agree, we postpone the conversations for another day. So we need to come to the point where, whether we are in opposition, I don't even know whether ODM is in opposition or in government, wherever we are, whether you're in a political party of any kind, what is your sense of community? What is the common good that Kenyans are looking for? And how can we ensure that the civic engagement and the spaces that we are in are actually protected? I shudder to hear some of the so-called progressives in this ODM and others.
Yes.
And sometimes I listen to them and I can't tell the difference between them and the issues that the young people are raising.
And just a reminder, the president last week said he labeled it the broad-based government. Whilst Odinga had remained the constant factor of the political equation, it's the same faction of what he labeled a mongrel when he addressed Chatham House in the UK in June 2022 before the elections. Yes, Charles.
Oh, thank you. First of all, there's something Professor corrected me on, which is right, that as at mid-2022, our exchange rate was about 128.
I did so earlier.
And then it shot to 161. And the reason as to why was because the Uhuru government was propping up the exchange rate using about 4 billion every month.
That
was withdrawn.
Yeah.
That was withdrawn, and then we found the exchange rate going up. So a number of issues, a number of measures had to be taken to stabilize it. So I admit that and also explain that. What is most important, again, is I would want to say that young people have a right to agitate. They have a right to express themselves and point out things that are not correct. You know, many a times, when you don't correct wrong things, or you don't point out wrong things, then nobody may realize that things are getting bad somewhere. And you also know that there are so many individuals who want to serve their own interests, many a times, even in the systems where people work. But the young people must be very careful that because we have gained a lot in our constitution, we remain to that discipline. For example, we have a bad police service or we have bad president. That does not mean, like for example, today I've just said that 5 families have notified police that they want to have a peaceful procession. So nobody should take advantage of that peaceful procession to bring in so many people in town that will not be able even to be controlled. Let people who want to come, yes, come. But even when we are 1 million in this town and we opt to move peacefully, there would be no problem. And we must also accept that when wrong people, because you see thieves will come, even those goons you are saying politicians would bring, some mad politicians can bring goons, thieves would come, but let's all agree.
Yeah, but also, Charles, police protected goons last week. We have that on record.
Fine. Yeah. If police protected goons, those policemen must take responsibility.
Correct.
I don't belong to that group of people who don't take. You know, I have children, and I have children like Somali people, many.
Yeah.
Not 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I want these children...
You not give us the number.
And Charles, okay, in terms of the numbers,
there are many.
You talked about the 5 families, and the letter they delivered at Central Police Station read they have invited Kenyans. So
I agree.
So you can't limit the number of Kenyans who can protest.
You can't limit, but you can also not solicit.
Who is soliciting?
What I'm saying, you can't limit the numbers.
Yes.
But equally, you cannot go hiring buses to.
So who are the people who? I mean, there has been constant denominator of ambiguity in who that you are not specific about. So who is this person?
I don't want to mention names.
So, then why are you making up stuff?
No, I'm saying they have buses hired to come to Nairobi.
So who are
and that has been managed. No, let's not go to that because you are diverting me.
Charles, you are a respected state official. And who served just allow me to ask you the question.
No. Let's be orderly,
mention
Charles. On TV.
Allow me to ask you the question so that you respond to the question, Charles. And we have a civil engagement here. You can't be making allegation and ambiguity in your statements that you can't prove.
You know, according to you, I can't. But I've mentioned it. I've said it.
So who are the people who are hiring buses?
I take responsibility as Owino to tell you that there are individuals who have hired. There have even been campaigns in social media, you have seen, asking people to come. It is not that the family has invited.
The family in the letter stated they invited.
There are people campaigning on social media.
Charles, we have the letter. I can read it to you.
No,
the family clearly stated that they invite all Kenyans to join them in the peaceful march.
I agree. And that is why I've said, if my son leaves my house and goes, that is his right. What I'm saying is we avoid a situation where somebody can be having money somewhere, hiring buses to bring to Nairobi. Whether they have hired or not, that is my position. That we should not be asking, be paying people to come. That's what I've said.
Okay.
But lastly,
yes, please.
Let me say something. I'm saying young people must be very careful. Because even when the young people fought for Mau Mau, it is the children of the home guards who came up, and we can mention them, who grew, who became serious businessmen, majority, save for President Mwai Kibaki. But majority were children of home guards. When we got multi-party democracy, since multi-party democracy, that time it was KANU, and there were people who were fighting for multi-party democracy from the other groups. To date, it's only KANU which has ruled. Those who fought for that multi-party democracy have not ruled. When Raila fought for
Kibaki ruled.
No, he was in KANU.
He resigned.
No, he was in KANU.
He left office.
So, in 2002, when Raila was called Mtongari and Jamba, it didn't take a year for him to be in government. You know what happened. So what we are saying is, let us push on policy, we push on our constitution, we push on our discipline as a country, and we also say the truth, so that we also don't come up with a situation, Sheila, where people will push so much, then come change that you are yearning for, you find a group of people who don't believe in it and they take you back.
Charles?
So what I'm saying, just a minute, what I'm saying is that let us restrict ourselves to policy and discipline as a country and say the truth on whatever is happening. So that we become, let me tell you, our biggest problem, they'll talk. Our biggest problem is, like, for example, today we have demonstrations. Let us try our level best. We have procession, not demonstrations. Let's try our level best.
Okay.
That this procession be restricted to the assembly, to the routes, and to the function that these 5 families have requested for. Let nobody take advantage of them to rob others, to break shops, to burn vehicles.
Thank you.
That is not admissible.
Prof, I'll come to you. Sheila,
let me just help Charles out a little bit. We read. We have been going through this historic, and I'm glad you've brought up the entire system of how change has been put until now. Charles, that is why we kept saying we are partyless. You see, all those people you're telling me, people of KANU ended up here, and people of whatever ended up there. That is why we are asking for systemic change. When you have a system that works, it will not matter if you are the child of KANU or if you are the child of whoever, Mau Mau. When you have a system that works, it will work for you. When you have a police force that respects human rights, it will work for you. Whether you are pro-government, anti-government, whatever, it will work for you. When you have an education system that works, your child will go to ECD, will go to primary school, will go to high school, and it will be the biggest equalizer. So we have actually had lessons from the stories you're telling us. And that's why we are saying no. That's why we're telling all the political parties, step aside. You guys have stakes in this. What we are saying is we want a system that works. So, Charles, we are coming up with a solution to the problem you just identified, which is issue-based.
Okay.
When you fight for issues and when you fight for a system, all of those examples you're giving us will be completely irrelevant.
Okay. Yes, Prof.
I just wanted to reiterate, building on what Sheila has just said, that revolutions or change, for that matter, is about values. Nothing else. It's about values. If you look at the French Revolution, it was about 3 values. Can people unite? Can people work together as communities? And can we have freedom, égalité, fraternité, and liberté? You know, just 3 values: unity, freedom, and working together as a people. That's what the French died for. When you come to our own revolution here in Africa, in Kenya specifically, it was about the right to property, land, and freedom. Simple and clear. It was not about whether the British must go. I'm sure if the British did not do what they did, nobody would have agitated for their going. Because we have had many communities coming here and settling and so on. Nobody was interested with the British. And I'm sure nobody is interested with President Ruto leaving this government. Really, to be honest. Because if that is the case, the people of Mount Kenya would not have voted him, giving him 47% of what made him president, including my own mother, who did not want to vote right as I did, and preferred that she's living in my house and want to protest against me to vote for Ruto. That kind of rebellion is not about Ruto. It's about our national values. And I think, if I understand it correctly, what the young people want is not just an issue-based country, but a country with a moral order.
Value-based.
With a value base. And you asked me the question before, and I'll say this and move to the next point, about what is it that is eating us. What is eating us is simply the old problem that we have always faced, that you think you are bringing change. But the more you think so, the more you harken back to the bad old habits. We are coming from a one-party order that started progressively from Jomo Kenyatta, moved to its akim or peak under Moi. And it was all about one individual, one clique, telling the others what to do. And that is what was rejected in the second so-called second liberation. But now we have seen the return of Kano values. This is essentially the problem, and nobody is calling it that way. I'm saying it because I lived through the Kano days. I think I was 37, CPE, we took power. And I lived through the Moi era, so we know what we are talking about. And Moi said Kano is going to rule for 100 years. I'm not sure he wanted, he identified the values that he was bequeathing the nation. Now, when Jubilee came in, we started seeing some creeping in of these things. Misinterpretation of the Constitution that we had bequeathed, because unfortunately, the Constitution was made by the Liberators, the Raila Odingas, the Moi Kibakis, and others, but it was implemented by Kanu. Face the music, it's true. It was implemented by Kanu. So how can that happen? Why am I saying so? 202, it is William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta who are the champion of the Kanu. 202, it is Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki who are the champion of the Liberators. So history doesn't lie. Facts, basically, you cannot hide them. So I think we need to go back, and there are two challenges here. One, the young people should stick to the Constitution. And what does the Constitution say? We have a destiny with our Constitution on the 10th of August, 2027. So the Ruto must go issue is he must go that time, not now. He will stay up to that time because that's what the Constitution says. I know the revolutions are sometimes go overboard, but we should not let that happen. Two, the government should not behave in a manner that you provoke people to make change before 2027. And the kind of killing we saw in the other day, the shooting point blank, making people angry. Today, I know there are some they're called securocrats, who are now using Iran and Israel war to justify all manner of things. Please, let's not do it. Let's have our destiny, our date, our rendezvous with our destiny in 2027.
Okay.
For now, we keep the fire burning that we need a country based on moral order. And if all of us, the government, can change, and us, including the young people, also adhere to that, then we'll have a country that we can change. If we tip as a country, it will take years to bring us back. Patience will pay. And I like what Professor Martin said here this morning, that we are a resilient nation. And true, we are a resilient nation, but let's not abuse that resilience by getting to the extreme, both ways. Us, those who are supporting change, and the others who are, on a counter-revolutionary agenda to derail change.
Yeah. So, Dr. Martin, what then needs to happen during this period? Because there is a concern on the performance of our institutions. Parliament is just but one of the major examples, holders of independent constitutional offices. I mean, how can they live up to the moment and within the democratic norms that the young people aspire for? Kenyans do as well.
First, let me say this, and this is a good public education we are into. Two theories explain what is happening. There's the generational theory, and there's a cohort theory. The cohort theory is telling us that the set of politicians that we have today behave in the same way and see things in the same lenses. So that when you hear them speaking in parliament and you hear the government speaking, they are saying the same thing. Similarly, the set of beliefs in terms of socio-economic and political beliefs that the young people are actually sharing are similar. So when they are looking at values, they are looking at what is wrong, they are looking at it from a common perspective. They are not looking at it from the old Kanu ways as we've looked at it, and that's what we have to call ourselves to question. And I like what Professor Kagwanja was saying. Those of us who have lived around for long, I mean, I've seen the Kenyatta 1 government, I've seen the Kenyatta 2 government, I've seen the Moi government, I've seen the Kibaki government, now I'm in the Ruto government. Keep using our old lenses to try and understand what's happening. There is a shift. There's a generational shift. This era is unleashing new ideas. So when I look at the young people, I can see that coming. So there is a social shift, a political shift, an economic climate shift that is actually very distinct. And that's why every time Parliament is responding, or every time the executive is responding to issues, it looks out of place. Because they are responding to a question they have not been asked, or a question they are not understanding. So what the young people are saying, which is missed by Parliament, you see, Parliament, whenever they want to do a new legislation, they are clawing back on freedom. They want to get into the spaces or social spaces. They want to keep on micromanaging that social space. Now that's a phenomenon that they are struggling with Starlink and other satellite, internet communication available. Let us not use too much time trying to do what will be undone with the short one. Now, we are also saying that the same ideas that we are using in the past, have worked in the past, should be the ideas that we call to question, so that we can come to a point where we are saying, what is going to take this nation beyond 2025? It's not going to be how hard, how heavy, or how much we bombard. Remember, even those who have bombs and can go and hit other countries also stop and say, let's have ceasefire. Yeah? Remember what happened in Iran and Israel the other day?
Yes.
There was might. There's enough substance to run a war. But even that, they realized that it is not going to help everybody. Let's stop and talk. So I want to say that let us stop and talk as a nation. Let us listen to each other. And let us know one thing, the young people are not going away. And some of us are going away because of age and because of attrition and others, but the young people and their numbers are not going away. So let's learn to give this country a sense that will take it forward positively.
Okay, and we'll be taking shortly, Charles, coming to you as I prepare to pull up the feedback here on the broadcast in the course of this first anniversary of what happened last year in 2024. And Charles, then in regards to Project Kenya, how then can this conversation move forward, appreciating that certainly what my generation has pointed out cannot be overlooked?
Thank you so much. I've said before that there shall always be young people. Even the ones who are young today will be our age and above, and they'll go and they'll always be young people. and young people must be listened to. But there is one area, Ayub, that I would want us to look at. We have a lot of conflict between the institution that is supposed to provide security and order, and that is the police and the public. We need to look at it genuinely and honestly and see how do we bring this to almost zero, so that when we have a case where a police officer is involved in committing something which is wrong, then let it be something that we cannot say is related to maybe politics or interest. You know, sometimes even in a large family, there are people who make mistakes. We are enjoying, one of the biggest gains we got was in the Constitution 2010 was Chapter 4 of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I want us, Sheila, to have a very honest conversation with ourselves as a country, young, old, and the security system, that rights come with limits, come with morals, come with responsibility. That Article 37 of the Constitution allows us to picket, allows us to demonstrate, allows us to present petitions to authorities peaceably and unarmed. It is my humble prayer that you, the young people, can look at this so that we avoid conflict. I know people will say it is the police who chokozas people. It's a common story. But this is not a time to defend the police or defend the young people. We just need a genuine discussion that, like today, we have a peaceful demonstration called by the families of those who lost their lives. May we have a peaceful demonstration from 10 in the morning to maybe 12:30 in the afternoon, to see them move to Moi Avenue as they have requested, to see them peacefully move to Kenyatta Avenue, move to Parliament Road, move to OP and present their petition to the minister.
How will they do so? The city is entirely under lockdown at the moment.
The lockdown is to prevent those people you are calling criminals, those people you are calling who want to destroy property. For example, let me tell you.
How will you establish?
Let me explain to you.
How will you establish?
You give me a second.
Yeah, I will. But how
give
will
me
you
a
establish?
Second.
Give me the.
No, just give me a second.
What formula will you employ to know that?
Can you give me a second?
Let me ask you the question.
I want to ask you. I want to tell you something.
Okay.
I want to tell you where there is lockdown. There is lockdown on the State House.
No, you can't access the entire city.
I'm giving you...
Charles, okay, to be factual, all of us came here
Let us not argue. Can I talk?
You cannot access the city.
Can I talk? Can you give me time to talk? Then you question me. Can you just allow me explain something? Then question me. You know, I cannot be talking...
You are factually incorrect.
I cannot be talking and you are questioning me.
Because my job is to ask you the questions.
Yeah, but let me explain after you've asked the question.
Yes, please.
Yes. I am saying we have critical infrastructure that must be protected. You've seen in the social media people talking about going to State House. State House is a restricted area. I can assure you, if people move to State House to break that we allow people to move to State House and break that fence and get in, we will lose lives. We don't want to lose a single life. Amongst us, as much as we are good Kenyans, we are bad Kenyans who have their interests. So what I'm saying is, let us wait and see. Will we have a procession for you to say there's a lockdown? Will we have these families having a procession? And will we have Kenyans in a procession? If we live here and there is no procession, then say there's total lockdown. You can't tell me people are not going to the market. You cannot tell me people are not accessing their offices. It is the interest of security officers to ensure that people access their offices and business go as usual.
And
you cannot have a hypothesis seated here.
All passenger service vehicles were forced to end their trips at railway. The roundabout at the Nyayo Stadium is locked. You cannot access the CBD on the other part heading from Jogoo Road. People are being forced to alight at that is City Stadium.
Are they walking to town?
So how will they come to
Are they
jobs?
walking to town?
I mean, if 80... Yes.
What I don't know...
How will they
what I don't know is...
Yeah. And look,
Are the vehicles...
I'm operating with one camera person here.
Yeah,
my staff is affected as well.
I have a question also. Are individuals stopped from getting into town, or maybe vehicles are stopped from getting to town?
That's what's happening, Charles.
No, are people accessing town?
So how
or
will they
vehicles?
access town? Charles, how will someone walk from City Stadium to CBD?
People have walked. People walk from Kibera to industrial
Either
area.
way, I think what we are saying...
People walk from...
What we are saying that this is not a normal day.
Yeah.
I personally told the people in my office, don't come to the office tomorrow because I don't want to be held accountable saying you are hurt as you are coming to work. So this is the normal thing. So we can't really hide our heads in the sand. This is not a normal day. You talked about Project Kenya.
Yes.
And it is important that we emphasize what Project Kenya is about today. Project Kenya is about securing the future of 80% of our population. It is not about protecting the future of those who are older generation. 2, Project Kenya is about putting the country on an even keel of a moral order. We have a moral order. It is not about counter-revolution. It is not about defeating the young people. It's not about the goons. It's not about all these things we are putting there. And Project Kenya is about values. It's about values. That is what Project Kenya is about. And finally, Project Kenya is about doing what is not going to provoke people into action that are going to derail our country, whether it is the young people or it is the government. We cannot do things that are going to provoke people. For example, the rhetoric we are engaged in now is about rocking the city for people not to come in. But what happens when people come in on foot with the ill motives? Because they don't have to come by bus. So we are telling Kenyans, this country is ours. If it goes to the dogs, all of us suffer. At the same time, we cannot fail to listen to the young people who are saying we need to act according to the values put in our constitution. They're not asking for more. Just implement the constitution as it is in terms of values. I think that's the point.
Thank you, Prof. So let's sample the feedback and then I'll give you the final comments, Daktari and Sheila here on the broadcast. Frank Orende says, a cry against empty promises, rising hopelessness, and leaders who only remember the people during the campaigns. The youth are not angry for nothing. They are tired of being lied to. Ademilo says, the Gen Z individuals who were killed and abducted during the finance bill demonstrations have never received justice, yet the government treats Gen Z as if we are the reason this country is lagging in development, which is why they show us no regard. We are not the problem. We are demanding accountability, and that's what they fear. Sir Nixon Dugure says those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. For those who promise to protect protesters, kindly uphold the rights to freedom of speech and assembly, ensuring public safety and order. Taliban_RA says the reason why demonstrations will never stop is when our safety, lives, justice, and our grievances are truly heard and addressed. It's Kipleting says the Constitution guarantees us freedom of expression and everyone has a right to express their dissatisfaction to the government. Today we remember 25th of June 2024, those who lost their lives while fighting for change. Babu Michael says the real problem has always been believing in the KK government. How can the government spokesperson declare it's a normal working day while at the same time state agencies, including the police, are blocking roads with wire mesh? And we have seen today, where is the honesty in that? You can't preach normalcy and practice suppression. Kiprop Kenya says you can silence a voice, but you can't silence a generation. This is not just a protest, it's a cry for all those who did not make it home. Okay, yes, Sheila, your final words. And Dr. next.
I think my final word is A, for the government. I think this is an opportunity to step it up one more time. We're 1 year later. This is an opportunity for dialogue. This is an opportunity to stop provocations and to really listen to what the young generation are saying. For the young people who are out there today, it is the audacity that makes the changes. You're on the right track. If we just stick to the issues and we fight for the Kenya that we want tomorrow, then we are definitely on the right track. I'll end, as usual, with my favorite quote, right? Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Nobody can intimidate you without your consent." Remember that always.
Doctor, you were on the streets last year.
I was on the streets last year.
Will you?
Yes, I'm about to go change now and go with the families.
Okay, hopefully with some sneakers.
We are one country, and our leaders have nothing to fear. They just need to embrace differences of opinion, diversity of opinion. Indeed, our parliamentarians do not need the tunnel they built for themselves. That is only an invitation for curiosity. The moment you start operating like a mole, walking under a tunnel, you're actually asking the young people to ask you, what do you do under that mole? And so the government too does not need to fear. In fact, if I was to advise, I would prepare a situation where a banquet is prepared in State House and people come and the president comes out and holds a conversation with young people. This is your home, this is your house. If children tell you they want to come to their home, you tell them, when are you coming? What would you like to eat for lunch? Prepare, meet them, talk, have a conversation. They might just as well go away feeling they were heard. But don't say he's protected, you can't come here. You are only building up anxiety and curiosity. This country, the only problem we have with the leaders is the fear of themselves. Otherwise, the young people are only expressing themselves, and they're doing so well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for your time. Much appreciated for your esteemed company here on the broadcast. Charles, thanks so much for coming. Much appreciated. Formerly the spokesperson of the National Police Service and now from the National Communications Center. Professor Peter Kagwanja is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute, a columnist as well and commentator on governance affairs. Sheila Olang is development economist, and Dr. Martin Olo is the Associate Dean, Daystar School of Law. And thanks to you too for waking up with us on this important day in the Kenyan calendar. Up next is Olive Barrows with a fresh set of a panel. She will be taking on from now until 10. Then our Swahili team will be taking over from them on this special day here in the country as we celebrate June 25th, when Kenyans flooded the streets to demand for better governance, complaining against gross incompetence, calling for accountability at the time when parliamentarians were dead against their clarion calls. She'll be up next year in a few minutes' time. Thanks for watching and goodbye.